So our application is working well, and we're now able to split through the country first and get the counties for that country, and then select a range of counties, and then summarize the data through a sum of what happened for the range of counties that you selected. Now what I want to do is add another feature. What I want to be able to do is do exactly as we've done before. We'll just extend the function we've got and then rewrite it. So I've got England, then the counties for England and so forth, and Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. But what I also want to now to be able to do is that the user can enter a date, and we can choose a range of dates and get the sum of all the data for that range of dates. So I'm going to set it up as a basic for you, and then we'll do a very short piece of code that enables us to do that. So as usual, what we need to do is set up our menu first, and I've added a new option here, as you can see, which is called option 3, dated summary for range of counties. It kind of says it on the tin, I think, what I wanted us to do. I then gone down to the bottom where our menu loop is created, where x is 1, 2 and 3 now, and I've put an elif in for x equals 3, and then just given the feedback message that we normally give, which is dated summary selected. As you know, I kind of like to wrap these in line spacers in case you've got several different activities in the same session that you use with the apps. So I just like to do that, and it just helps to make the data that you're going to get, and especially when it's just data, it's not going to be a graph, it's just going to be data, and you're going to get spacer lines in here, and that's the only way I can find to do that in PyCharm. I'll bet there's an easier way to do that, and we'll no doubt discover it, or you'll discover it, or somebody will discover it, and we'll make life easier for ourselves. But that's setting up our menu, and that's the first thing that needs to be done, of course. Right, what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy this whole routine, because we still want to have the capacity to limit the country first, and then get the counties and limit the range of counties. But what we want to do is add to that as a new feature. So I'm simply going to copy this whole method, this whole function here, and I'm going to paste it in and rename it. Process dated summary, and I put my snake in there. And that's what we'll call down here in menu 3. So I'm going to put it in there. So process dated summary, and my Git is picking it up, and that's good. So we've now got that. So what I want to do now is modify this function that we have, the dated summary, and it's exactly the same as the one above. Remember that, with just a few simple lines that are going to help us to analyze by date as well. So what we want to do is we've got our indices for the counties, remembering that, as I said yesterday, in the last video, which was yesterday, that in the NumPy array, we've got to subtract 1, because although it says 1 on the menu, that's actually item 0 in a zero-based NumPy array. So the start index and the index are giving us the counties. That's where we've got to. We've then checked that those start indexes and end indexes are in front of each other as they should be, and we're swapping if they're not. And so that's a really, really neat way of doing that. So this is where our new code is going to be placed. This is where we're going to go with our new code, because the summary is exactly the same. What we're just doing is limiting the data frame that we've got, and then summarizing in exactly the same way by getting the horizontal and the vertical sum as we did before. So I've pasted in some code that says asking for the start date. So it's an input, and we're getting the date, and you tell the user what format it must be in, which is going to be DDMMYY, and you're going to do input end date. Now, I'm not tracking any errors in this where they might give you a date that's out of range for the data that's in the data set that we've got. And maybe you could add that to make sure that the date that they give you as a start date is actually after the first date that is available, and warn them if it's not, because otherwise an error would be produced. But this is just a quick and dirty way of doing the coding at the moment. So that's what we do first. We ask for the date and tell them what format we need it in. then just as we did before, I'm going to use the pandas to date time, PD to date time, to get that into a format that can be used to analyze the dates in the headers of our spreadsheet that's inside of our application. So start date equals PD to date time. So I'm using pandas to date time. The start date that was supplied by the user, day first equals true. So that's an important thing because of the formatting for UK dates. Remember, we've got our own special way of doing it, which is different to that, which is used by US and some of the international community. So that's good for that. And then we're going to filter the data by date range. So that's not the one, it's giving me a suggestion, but I'm going to do that. So what I'm doing is date columns equals country, date columns data from 2 onwards. So we've taken out the filter rows. So this is going to be from index 2, which is the third column, remember, which is excluding the country and the county columns here on line 92. That's really good. So our filter dates are going to be applied as a mask. Okay, so date for date in date columns. We've already got our date columns. If start date is less than or equal to the date time, and so forth, and the end as less as the end date. So just have a look at this code here. So this is just a continuation of the same line. This could all have been in one line, but the formatting that it says by default means that it should be separated up and not too long to read. This grey line that you see here is supposed to be an indicator of the maximum length of any line that should be, and that's following PEP 8. That's all that is. It's a PEP 8 indicator. Long lines should be split up. Right, so filter dates equals date for date and date times. If the date, give me the date less than the end date. Less than that, less than the end date. So we're getting our range of dates there. Calculate the sum is exactly the same as it was before. Now all we have to do is test that our code is going to run as we expect it to run. Let's test our application. Run it as usual. And we get our menu options, and this time it's menu option 3. Which country do I want? I want Scotland, because it's not because it's the most beautiful country in the world, but because it has a short list of counties. And there's the counties, and I'm going to go from 19, Kincardineshire, which I knew very well when I was young, up to, I don't know, North Lanarkshire, 24, which is where I lived for a while. And then what we've got is our DD MMYYYY. Now what's been clever about what we've done is that we're no longer checking to see whether the date is in our column headers. We're just simply asking whether it's before or after. So any date. So it doesn't have to match exactly the column headers that we've got, and that will be automatically picked out by the data that we get. So enter the end date, so I'll do 09, just to show you that it can go beyond the first part of the month. 12, 2023, that's quite a long period. And it gives us the total sum for the Kincardineshire to North Lanarkshire is 8619, exactly as we want it to do. And what I think you should do is, if you can get a chance to do this, maybe extend it with some error trapping that would pick up whether the date is in the valid range, and also whether you could suggest maybe a test that would say what happens if they type in a name instead of choosing a number for the counties. So that's a test you could do if you get time. But the functionality is there. It's a nicely created piece of code. It's not as modularized as you could do to get big brownie points from that. And perhaps getting the dates could be a module, a function of its own. Filtering could be a module. Getting the start index could be a module. So there are ways in which you could modularize this code in order to make it more robust and more secure, as they call it, for maintenance and any adjustments that have to be made. So that's it.